I expect that in the coming months this summer, before the fiscal year is over, that we will have voted on this bill, as well, the infrastructure bill, as well as voted on the budget resolution. But if only one comes to me, I'm not. If this is the only thing that comes to me, I'm not signing it.
That was President Biden speaking just after announcing he had struck a deal with a bipartisan group of lawmakers on a new infrastructure plan. But his recent backtrack sparked confusion and anger among some lawmakers, prompting the president to issue a new statement on Saturday, saying my comments also created the impression that I was issuing a veto threat on the very plan I had just agreed to, which was certainly not my intent. So to be clear, our bipartisan agreement does not preclude Republicans from attempting to defeat my family's plan. Joining me now to break this down, Sarah Westwood, Washington Examiner political and investigative reporter. And Sarah, I guess this gives us a look at just how precarious this whole thing is when you see the president walk back this veto comment.
Absolutely. This was always going to be very difficult for President Biden because the people who were skeptical of a bipartisan deal are on the left, the very progressive lawmakers, and on the right, conservative Republicans. The middle was always going to go along with this bipartisan deal. But really on Thursday, when Joe Biden issued what he later described as something of a veto threat, and that's certainly how it was perceived on the right, Biden was just going along with what Democratic leadership had earlier in the day already said they were going to do. It was House Speaker Nancy Pelosi who had come out and said, my members are not going to take a vote on this bipartisan package that Biden is backing and that Senate Republicans helped negotiate unless we have assurances from the Senate that we're also going to get a bill passed using reconciliation, which is a procedure that would allow Democrats to pass it on a party line vote. The problem is that it's not clear that Democrats would be able to get those 50 votes for a reconciliation bill, and certainly not one of the size that Biden wanted. So when Biden came out and simply sided with leadership in his own party, he risked unraveling that bipartisan deal because Republicans didn't want to be seen as signing on to something that paved the way for trillions in new spending. So Biden really single-handedly trying to keep this whole situation together, but it's not clear any of this could move forward after this mess.
Right, yeah, no doubt about that. I want to show you a tweet here, Sarah, that came from AOC talking about this bipartisan coalition, saying that the diversity pretty perfectly conveys which communities get centered and which get left behind when leaders prioritize bipartisan deal-making over inclusive lawmaking. So we know we have been focused a lot on the Republican response to this, but there's also a lot going on within the president's own party.
Right. And that's the kind of rhetoric that we've heard from many on the left when opposing what Biden has been trying to do here, which is this argument that bipartisan unto itself is not a goal, that they should not be negotiating a deal with Republicans simply to notch that accomplishment of having reached a deal with Republicans. There are all kinds of programs that were initially in Biden's infrastructure package, the one in which he really stretched the definition of infrastructure that Democrats really want and they've wanted for a long time. Climate policies, subsidies for elder care, for home care, and a whole host of social programs that Democrats want to pass. And those progressives also understand that they have a relatively brief window to get all those things onto the finish line, because come November of next year, there is a very good chance that Democrats could lose at least the House with such a thin margin there, and possibly the Senate. And the window for accomplishing that during Biden's presidency, or at least his first term, could be over. So they want to use this one and only chance they have to pass something using this tool, reconciliation. The problem that many of them are ultimately forgetting is that Senator Joe Manchin, the most conservative Democrat in the conference, has said he doesn't want to advance any infrastructure spending that doesn't have a bipartisan component. So it's not really possible for them to do that reconciliation bill without at least trying to get the bipartisan compromise done.
There are a lot of votes we'll be watching closely as we move forward. Sarah, let's shift to big tech now. A number of proposals out there to try to rein in big tech companies, and now Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy has one as well. What do you think ultimately comes of this?
Well, there is bipartisan agreement that big tech needs to be reined in, and that's really where it begins and ends on Capitol Hill. You have Democrats and a handful of moderate Republicans who are pushing legislation that's focused really more on the market consolidation of big tech. That is, they want to break up the monopoly power that some of these big tech companies, particularly ones like Amazon, have, where they've really done a lot of integration of all the marketplaces and shut out the possibility for competition. Now, the bill that you mentioned, the proposal from House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, is focused more on the speech regulation powers that these big tech companies have.
Right.
Their ability to scrub things off their platform that they don't agree with politically, and the lack of transparency into how they make those decisions about what can be said on their platforms. So two very different approaches here from both parties, creating a lot of weird coalitions of lawmakers, people you don't often see working together. For example, you see Democrats working with Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz on one of these big tech bills. So it's really uniting a lot of people in some interesting ways. But the only thing that the sides seem to agree on is that these big tech companies need more oversight.
Sarah Westwood, Washington Examiner political and investigative reporter. Great to see you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Another tourist in New York caught in